Spoilers and offensive content to come.
Oh, so many. Because this is Two Fat Guys Talk, episode 116. You are Dave, I am Carlos, and it is time for the best of the last decade. After we talk about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Dave, what did you think of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker?
It was okay.
Yeah, it was an okay movie. I enjoyed it.
It was, to use your words, clumsy.
Extremely clumsy.
Pacing all over the place.
Really jigsaw puzzly.
I mean...
Bad jigsaws.
Whoever set up the pacing of this movie has never worked on a properly paced movie, J.J. Abrams.
I love The Force Awakens, and I liked The Last Jedi an awful lot. And I felt especially The Last Jedi got a bit of a bum rap from a lot of ugliness online we will not get into. I definitely think that The Rise of Skywalker is the weakest of the sequels, but I still had fun because it was a fun, dumb adventure, and it really raised the stakes. And I'm a firm believer of the rule of cool trumps all. So when I see, and again spoilers, Emperor Palpatine blasting a whole fleet with Force lightning, and they need to overcome that, I'm like, yeah, raise the stakes. Give everything a Death Star cannon. Let's start messing with timelines. Go higher. Go stronger. Go beyond plus ultra. I'm all for this.
And yet, I think that was the number one problem with this movie.
You are not alone in that thought.
I mean, Disney unfortunately fell prey to its own hubris in that they felt they had to go back to the super weapons sort of stuff. And everybody was already complaining that, episode 7 was basically a New Hope redone. That's not necessarily bad. I don't want to go over old stuff. Disney didn't have to go back to the super weapons for episode 9. They really didn't. I mean, that fleet alone was terrifying enough without the need to give them all miniaturized Death Star tech that could take out a planet. Yes, you're raising the stakes, but just the idea that you basically have... They basically borrowed the idea of the Dark Fleet from the old extended universe and brought it in. When they first show you all the ships coming out of the ice and the ground, and you just see the hundreds of Star Destroyers. I mean...
I think there are more than hundreds.
I'm going with hundreds for the moment, but when you see the fleet, you're just like, oh, fuck. Now, granted, adding on the fact they all had miniaturized Death Star attack just increased a little bit more, but they didn't need to go there. Just that size of a fleet of Star Destroyers. Add in a couple Super Star Destroyers, and you've already got a fleet. What is anybody going to do? They can literally just come into a system with that entire fleet. The white flag goes up instantly. There's no need for the Death Star laser. The Empire conquered the known galaxy in Star Wars with less than 500 Star Destroyers. Granted, there was nobody left to fight back, really. But that's what they kind of had, the rebellion had to go up against, including all the new ones that were being made. You're right, there was probably thousands there. Game fucking over. When you have that many Star Destroyers come in, your fleet of individuals, as they had at the end of Rise of Skywalker, wouldn't take out a fleet of that size without the MacGuffin.
It's not enough. We need to go even crazier.
No.
I want every stormtrooper to have a portable Death Star gun on their person.
It's just having Palpatine come back. I mean, I loved the set pieces they did for Exodar.
Now, I am certain it's not called Exodar because that's a WoW term, but you mean the Sith planet.
No, I need to look up the proper name.
Look it up, Dave. While you do, I want to point out that I liked a lot of the societal themes brought up in The Last Jedi. I really enjoyed them talking about how basically oligarchs profited from the war. I liked the themes of mutiny and of real strong-headed men getting their comeuppance, like Poe Dameron, even though I really like Poe Dameron. Ultimately, I thought that The Last Jedi could have had a bit more adventure in it, and the Rise of Skywalker could have had a bit more of The Last Jedi in it. A bit more of the thematics instead of being just a plain old fun adventure. But if you're gonna go out on a bang, I say. And bringing back Palpatine, which I think was always the plan, even though it seems like it wasn't. Tying Rey to Palpatine, which probably was always the plan, but again, seems like it wasn't, really does bookend the Skywalker saga nicely. I had a good time at the movies. I thought I was going to dislike this more than I did, to be honest. What was the name of the planet?
Exegol.
Cool. The Sith planet.
Which is neat as well, because actually that's a brand new planet that they hadn't ruined or introduced in the still ongoing Old Republic MMO. Which, I mean, Korrigan is the home planet of the Sith in that one. So it would make sense that with everybody and their mother knowing where Korrigan was, they would kind of move where they have their seat of power. But just how they brought out ideas that had been done in the games and everything else with the Sith statues, the non-force sensitive peons doing the whole worshipping thing.
The clones of Palpatine, which was also a big thing.
The clones of Palpatine, which was, the Dark Emperor saga done in the comics for, when Luke actually went dark for a little bit by his own choice. I mean, I don't mind that Disney has all these works that they can pick and cherry pick from. But I would have preferred Palpatine doing the Force lightning to basically the planet was neat. Don't get me wrong. That was cool, and that just goes along more and more with some of the stuff that we learned back in the old extended universe. That, the reason why the Empire's fleet was sometimes so good at its job was because Palpatine was there doing a Force. I don't even know what the actual power was, but it was like a Force command where it allowed everybody to work together so seamlessly. Now, if I only give that some of his stormtroopers who still can't hit a fucking
the
part.
The stormtrooper effect was in full effect here. There was a scene that you and I both laughed out loud in, and that was when they landed on the surface of that Star Destroyer, and on the inside they're jammed their speeders like they're not using speeders, and they're riding horses on top of the Star Destroyer, or whatever the beasts are called, but they're horses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep, go crazy. If you are going to be clumsy with a bang. And that was a fucking supernova of a fucking shot. And I loved it because it was so dumb. That underflowed so much, Sonic appeared at the boss.
No, that was awesome. The fact that the MacGuffin is that they can't take off without the command ship or the command tower giving them proper coordinates to get off this planet.
Yeah. Oh, you mean up? Go up.
Oh, but
you have the building that's down.
But
go not that way.
The gravity well.
There are a lot of things in this universe that don't make sense considering they have had super future tech for tens of thousands of years, including them being so surprised there's a stormtrooper using a jetpack, not being able to navigate off the planet up, and somehow, despite living in a place that has had numerous planet-busting pieces of technology, not having planetary defenses that can stop them. It's a little fucking lame, but I don't care. I don't care because this movie went over the top, and if you're gonna go over the top and have Lando bring in the entire rest of the galaxy to help you, I don't care that every corner they turned, Lando or a Force Ghost helped them out of a jam. I don't care. It was a lot of fun. It capped off this trilogy, which ultimately I really liked a lot more than the prequels, and a little more than the originals, even. So, I don't have too many complaints about the movie.
I gotta give the movie the one big thing. At least this movie didn't didn't screw over established lore physics of the universe like 7 did.
I don't really care.
Well,
I don't really
okay.
care that they hyperspace into another ship. That shit's cool. I don't care that apparently Kylo Ren can grab a necklace I'm wearing a planet away through the Force.
Funny enough, though, that whole being twins in the Force thing is actually an established thing.
Sure, it's dumb, but sure.
I'm fine sometimes with the rule of cool. I don't agree with you that it trumps everything. I think that
all things,
when you've established the ways that your universe works, and yes, I realize we're talking about space magicians. I realize this. But when you've got the physics down and you have non-space magicians then completely breaking your rules just because, I get a little bit annoyed at that's my uber Star Wars geek talking.
Sure.
Otherwise, what did you think about Ben redeeming
himself?
Didn't he? Yeah, he redeemed himself at the end by sacrificing himself. What did you think?
I thought this was going to happen since The Force Awakens. And honestly, it seems as if non-Force Ben Solo is fucking funny. Like when he fucking jumps and he lands hard and he's like, ow.
That was fun.
Like, when he finally gets his lightsaber back, he just does his bow. Like, okay, this is going to go a different way, Knights of Ren.
Okay, and let's talk about the Knights of Ren. I am both geeking out over the fact that we actually have names for each one of them now.
Yeah.
And they all basically bring back into canon old Sith Lords from the Old Republic. So I'm geeking out on that. But they were fucking lame.
They were super lame.
They might as well have been wearing Stormtrooper armor.
They were almost getting beat by an unarmed Ben Solo. Granted, he's a powerful Force user, but still. I forget who said it. I think it was Noelle Stevenson. Don't quote me on this. It might not have been someone I follow on Twitter, and I think it was her, said she would have preferred if Finn was Force sensitive and also a Jedi in the new movies. And I kind of agree with that. I thought that's where they were going. They even have little hints at Finn kind of having a bit of extra sensory perception, like kind of just a hunch that he's Force sensitive. He probably is, right? I
don't think there's any doubt anymore that Finn has Jedi potential. And
not to take away from Rey at all, but Finn's story of the stormtrooper betraying the First Order, was also a compelling story that I feel got a little overshadowed in the end by the Jedi and the Sith, as it always does. It's why even the parts about Canto Bright in The Last Jedi, which I think was thematically strong, even if it overstayed its welcome a bit, they even got a little overshadowed by the fact that it's always going to be space wizards. I clamor for the day when we have a mainline Star Wars movie when the main character is a non-Force sensitive person who's able to still fight Sith and Jedi at their level with armor or whatever, the way you can do in the games, for example. And also, this was the first movie that we really saw the trio of Finn, Poe, and Rey as the new trio, which was always supposed to be the thing, but in The Force Awakens we didn't really get it because of circumstance. And then The Last Jedi we didn't really get it because, again, of circumstance. We finally get it here. It feels so good here. And that's why I said in a vacuum, this movie's great. It's just a fun adventure. It almost could have been Episode 7 on its own, and you'd be like, I didn't get backstory on some of the stuff, but the movie still works. But even then, like they're really close, they're hugging in the end, and I'm like, yeah, this is the trio. Finally got this trio that they've been building the whole time and didn't use until now.
And that's the unfortunate thing for what Disney did here is, I mean, we all wanted to see what happened with Luke later on and everything else. Like, back in the day, Episode 7 should have been 10 years later with Luke, Leia, and Han. But they waited too long. So they should have just right from the get-go. Fast forward 100 years, you still could have had Ghost Skywalker kicking around and all that. You still could have brought back Palpatine 100 years later kind of thing. Hell, Chewie could still be around. They'll live hundreds of years.
Am I the only one who wanted the ghost of Hayden Christensen to help Ray at the end? Am I the only one who wanted this? I know we heard his voice. Yes, you are. I know we heard his voice, but I wanted more than just hear disparate voices. I wanted the ghosts of Hayden Christensen, Samuel L. Jackson, Jar Jar Binks, and the Marshmallow Man to come in and help out Ray.
As I told you, of all those characters, there is only one person who is actually still alive, and that's Jar Jar.
Yeah.
Still alive, back on Naboo, being treated like shit by anybody who isn't a kid for what he caused to the universe.
Was it really his fault? He was duped.
And
like everyone else. Palpatine's so charismatic. I wanted his dick in my ass. And I know he's evil.
Gross. However...
No. No, not gross.
Dude, he's old and fucking gross.
Oh, it's not a homophobic thing. It's an ageist thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a total ageist. Okay, now that we've got that.
Yeah, fuck.
I want his wrinkly old man cock in me.
Close. Anyway, no, Jar Jar doesn't deserve that because Jar Jar... Here's the thing. I dislike Jar Jar's character in part 1. Had to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
Because they used him as comedic relief.
Yeah.
I liked Jar Jar's advancement and actually growing into his role of being a more serious person. But like everybody else, you're right. He got duped. Does he deserve what he gets on Naboo? No, he doesn't. But he also takes a little bit of ownership for falling for it as well. Which is why he plays the clown, entertains kids, and the adults basically just treat him like he doesn't exist. It's actually a rather sad story for him.
Yeah, he got a bum rap.
He did.
He wasn't that bad. There are way worse things in those prequels than Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, say, almost everything else. The best parts of the prequels were Palpatine. Palpatine has consistently been the best part of these movies. He loves playing this character as ridiculous as he is. And, yeah, he makes these movies, really.
Oh.
Fuck, he made this one. Really, like, such a joy to see him back. I didn't realize how much I missed him. Did you catch the tank of clone Snokes?
Yes. Well, right when he says, I made Snoke, and all of a sudden you get the view of a couple of the tanks where there's clone Snokes being made. It's like, he's not kidding. He literally made Snoke. There is so much. I almost feel like to have done this justice, it needed to be its own trilogy to have done this whole thing justice. Because then you could have had the trio becoming the actual official trio of the movies. You could have had the growing threat of Palpatine, them searching for Exegol. It just seems that most of the pacing feels like they cut out giant sections of stuff they wanted to do onto the cutting room floor because it just went bang, 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 bang. And it just... Yeah.
I think one of the problems, as much as I like The Last Jedi's themes, I think those themes could have been done justice in a different way. I still think Canto Bright should have been a set piece in the middle movie, but I think the middle movie should have taken place closer to when this one did, and that's where Palpatine was reintroduced. And I honestly think the middle movie should have been parts of The Last Jedi and parts of this within a third movie after it. Mm. And because The Last Jedi taking place immediately after The Force Awakens, that in and of itself is my least favorite part of it. Because it ultimately makes it just too much of a bookend. It's not like The Empire Strikes Back, where it still stands as its own movie, right? It's like The Matrix Revolutions is really just The Matrix Reloaded Part 2.
And that's a really good point. The fact that you don't have that time jump for stuff to have happened, like in the other movies, I mean, you do miss a giant chunk of in the background events being able to happen to set things up. You're just bang, you're right there, and it's continuing on. Well, maybe if it had been like a year later even, and they were now being chased down to the last bits of the fleet. You still could have had big stuff happen in the universe while you were waiting. Now, that fleet they had show up of individuals to take out the Last Order fleet, or the Final Order, rather, fleet. Well, number one, the Ghost was there from Rebels.
They also had a lot of old ships. I saw Y-Wings, A-Wings, and B-Wings.
There were B-Wings there.
There were absolutely
there were B-Wings in the small fleet. They originally had that. That's surprising. The B-Wings.
Yeah, B-Wings were there.
Are still around. I mean,
B-Wings were good ships. If they can retrofit TIE fighters to be badass, they can retrofit a B-Wing. Well, it's probably B-Wing Mark III. Like,
the funny thing is, when you watch Rebels makes the B-Wing seem way more epic than it ever actually was, because Rebels has the B-Wing being their anti-cruiser ship. Like,
well, that's what it was. In the original X-Wing game, B-Wing was the expansion pack, because that's where it was introduced. Mm-hmm. And the B-Wing was supposed to be an experimental new Rebel fighter that combined the all-roundedness of the X-Wing with the bombing ability of a Y-Wing. Mm-hmm. And that's what the B-Wing is. Same idea where how in TIE Fighter, the TIE Defender is just so much better than every last TIE Fighter put together.
But in Rebels, they actually have a laser cannon that shoots from all 4 points of its ship. Uh-huh. Conjoins into one giant laser, basically like the Death Star laser, and just blows the fuck up.
Now, I could have used that in the original X-Wing.
Yes, we could have.
There was a mission where you recreate the Death Star trench run with a B-Wing, and that definitely would have helped.
No kidding. But anyway, we saw the Ghost there. We saw, as you said, a lot of different ships. I got a screenshot of the actual ship makeup. I mean, there are new ships we've never even seen before.
Did they have the old Naboo runner ship, that the Naboo Starfighter? The one that was very prominent in the Phantom Menace?
I couldn't make out any...
Because that would have been a nice nod to have.
However, Leia's original cruiser from Episode 4, it was there.
What the fuck does it think it's going to do?
Well, it was right there in the original small fleet.
They should have just put Optimus Prime there just to see if anybody spotted him.
From what I understand, in some of the mock-ups, they actually use ships from other series.
Why is the Enterprise here?
Exactly. But to have that many people... Okay, I'm just going to come out and say it. I didn't like how they ended it. I didn't like the whole... All of a sudden, all this entire fucking fleet, the largest fleet you've ever fucking seen kind of thing, outside of the Empire, shows up to help them on Exegol.
It's because Lando is very persuasive.
Okay, but here's my problem with this whole thing. Okay, they all showed up because, it's either this is the time to fight or give up kind of thing. Sure. But you're telling me at the same time they're taking out with these... what has to be hundreds of thousands of individual ships, that there were still more hundreds of thousands of ships all around the galaxy to start taking out the First Orders.
Well, hang on. They were still outnumbered. That was just the push they needed to give Rey enough time to finish things.
They really weren't outnumbered with that many ships anymore. I mean, when I say hundreds of thousands of individual ships, I'm not joking, but all of a sudden, they take out everything, Rey's back up in her ship and everything else, and Poe makes the comment of they're rising up all across the galaxy. No, you did this the last time and fucked it up. The whole thing we got at the end of fucking Episode 6, with all of a sudden people are tearing down the Emperor's statue on Coruscant and everything else. No, that didn't happen.
But it did happen, though.
No, it didn't.
It did, because we saw it in the re-releases.
So all of a sudden you get the shot of the Ewoks and watching Star Destroyer above their planet getting blown up. You see clouds.
Yeah, they probably shot Wicked at it.
That was Wicked down below. Oh, did you catch the evil Ewok on the Empire side?
I didn't, but I know. I believe it's there.
It was an evil Ewok that was recreating or fixing Kylo Ren's helmet.
Ah.
I saw that. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? But it's just, they pulled the same thing at the end of episode 6 as they did for 9. And it's like, no, that's not how this works. Even in the new canon for Disney's Star Wars, it took years to get Coruscant back. And even then, Coruscant didn't become the head of the government anymore. They did a whole transitional thing, moving it across the galaxy every so many years. I feel that they don't think out their endings very well. 6 was Lucas's fault. Both times.
Every time.
But it just would have been nice if 9 had actually accepted that, hey, this wasn't something that's going to end overnight. Now, maybe if that entire fleet started doing planet hopping, taking out the First Order's ships, I'm sure at that point the First Order would just be losing systems like mad. But we're talking a long time battle happening here, not a overnight everything's good again. What they need to do now, and I mean the actors like Poe and Rey wants out. She wants nothing more to do with Star Wars. She had her 3 movies. She wants to move on and not get pigeonholed like Luke did. Other people are quite willing to come back. Disney needs to do the right thing now and fast forward this universe 5 to 10,000 years.
I'd love to see the far future myself.
Let's do that. You basically can let go of any attachment to the original stuff other than, these characters existed, these battles happened, you can have, wrecks on planets. The Easter eggs I got from Jedi Fallen Order was awesome. That's why I want to see it in another Star Wars movie. Jump at least 500 years. That way, only Baby Yoda will still be alive.
The child. Yeah.
And we're done. You have a clean slate, pretty much. If they had done that with 7, 8, and 9, with just Force Ghosts being around for the old characters, and Legends and stuff like that, I think 7, 8, and 9 would have been much better movies. And I love seeing Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford in these movies, but I think it held them back. It really did.
There's a certain amount of truth to that. I don't think it entirely held them back. I think it needed to be executed a little bit differently. I still think this was a really good trilogy of movies. Infinitely better than the prequels. Anyone who says otherwise is insane. Yeah.
A lot of crazy people out there.
A lot of crazy people. And speaking of crazy, you know what's crazy? Going over the best of last decade. That's crazy. Now, for those of you who clicked this timestamp and jumped right here because you didn't really want to hear us talk about Star Wars, this is the part of the show, the best of the last decade, that Dave and I are going to rank, well, not really rank, we're going to talk about the best things of last decade. I have a bunch of honorable mentions for my categories. I don't know if you do.
And I have some that actually have the games that were most influential of the decade as well.
I don't know why you keep saying games. This is the best of last decade, not the best games of last decade. This has many categories. Why don't you start with a category? You'll mention your honorable mentions. You'll mention your winner. If I have that category, I'll name mine. If not, I'll think of something, and then I'll do a category.
Let's go with the easiest of the group, I think.
Okay.
Traditional film. Now,
what do you mean by traditional?
Just what I was going to say. I've got this broken up into film traditional, a.k.a. was in theaters.
What does it matter?
Because...
What does it matter, fucking...
hang on.
Steven Spielberg. That's in theaters
look, Steven, shut up and let me explain.
Okay.
I broke this up into Netflix and traditional because I feel that Netflix excels at a different type of film. I'm not saying they're not worthy of being considered traditional films or being not worthy of being in theaters.
Okay.
But it also gave me the opportunity to highlight multiple movies versus just the one that I ended up going with.
Well, I do have the film category, and I considered all of them, so why don't you do both those categories for yours, and then I'll chime in.
Well, it's actually funny here. For traditional film, both best film of the decade and most influential, I put as Mad Max Fury Road.
Absolutely agreed. Mad Max Fury Road is just... It's, like, good in every possible way. Like...
Fury Road showed a digital marketplace just how good a movie could be with practical effects throughout the entire thing. There were so little digital effects in there other than some touch-ups that it showed Hollywood that, yes, you can still do this, and it looks amazing.
It was incredibly shot with very little shaky cam, I might add.
Shaky cam needs to die.
Needs to die. It's the worst. It was incredibly shot. It was a really, really good story. Mm-hmm. It told a really good story that resonates with a lot of modern themes and what they could potentially mean for the future. It had fantastic characters, over-the-top moments, flamethrower, guitar-playing, metal bard. That movie was... It was metal, and it was sympathetic, and it was emotional, and it was so good. Yeah, good call.
Now, I know I said I broke up into two categories, one for Netflix. As much as I want this category here, I don't watch movies off of Netflix. So, other than the TV shows I've watched off of Netflix, I don't have a runner for this category.
So why did you even bring it up?
I was hoping you would, because you end up watching a lot more Netflix than I do. When it comes
let me get this straight. You finagled this nonsense reason for why these have to be different categories, and you don't even have an entry for one of them.
I wanted to discuss it, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, films are films. Like, they're films whether or not they're on Netflix or YouTube or in theaters. My film of last decade was also Mad Max Fury Road for reasons we discussed. I had 3 honorable mentions here, and we can talk about these if you like. My first honorable mention was Black Panther, which is my favorite of the Marvel movies and a really good superhero movie in and of itself. It follows the Iron Man formula, but it does it with characters and locations that we don't normally see in this still very white male-dominated Hollywood. Just a fantastic film. My favorite of the Marvel superhero movies. My second honorable mention was Hannah. And I rewatched this again recently. The first half of the movie, I was honestly wondering if this was the best movie I've ever seen in my life. And then it just kind of falls apart. And then its final scene is a transitionary scene that ends up being its last. Hannah's a movie that starts so strong, and its first half is so good, and then it kind of crumbles under the weight of itself, and you're hoping it'll end with a bang, and it doesn't. And
I don't even know the movie.
The premise was that a girl was being trained in the wilderness by her father to be an assassin because her father's made enemies, and eventually the worst comes to pass. They're separated, and she has to survive on her own. And it's about her adventures in a world she doesn't really know as a trained killer, basically. It is super good, and there's apparently a series coming that I don't know if it's a continuation or a retelling.
Okay.
My third honorable mention is El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. This is more of a personal one. It basically acted as an epilogue for a character in Breaking Bad, Jesse Pinkman specifically. For personal reasons, I wanted him to have his happy ending, and he got it. Although with quite a bit of bittersweetness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't do any honorable mentions just because there's just too many movies, and
it's fine.
Fury Road really just summed it up.
It's fine. So now it's my turn to mention a category, right? Okay. Here's my category. The best of last decade, book. Aha. I actually brought up the book category.
Wow.
Now, I have not read nearly enough books last decade. I'm working to remedy that. There's a lot of books I've wanted to read. One that resonated with me quite a bit, not just because it's a World of Warcraft book, but because it's impeccably well written, is World of Warcraft War Crimes by Christy Golden.
Okay.
It was basically about the events surrounding the trial of Garrosh Hellscream on Pandaria. It's extremely well written, just goes into incredible depth of character. It would have entirely worked even if you didn't know about Warcraft. It definitely works as a companion about Warcraft. Just a fantastic book all around. With my honorable mention being a book called Dirty Wars by Jeremy Scahill. It's a nonfiction book about what the George W. Bush administration did in its war on terror that ended up destroying lives around the globe, that the Obama administration unfortunately continued. It's basically about making it legal in the United States to treat anywhere as a theater of combat, and the dangers of elected officials using raw intelligence without it getting properly vetted, and the chilling effects it has on innocent people all around the world. It's a sobering read, but a good read.
Now, actually, I didn't think of this one, which is surprising for me.
Yeah.
But this year hasn't been really a year for new books for me.
This decade. Last decade. Best of last decade.
I know it's the best of last decade, but I have read so many books over the last decade. Choosing one would be very hard because I tend to read series.
You can name a series if you want. In fact, you could do anything you want. You're an adult.
I'm not going to go with a book. I'm going to go with an author.
Very well. Author of last decade.
I'm going to go with Simon R. Green, actually.
Simon R. Green.
Simon R. Green is a longtime sci-fi / fantasy writer. I guess the reason why I highlight him is for his rare talent to actually make multiple series you think have nothing to do with each other, and then bring it all together and end literally 3 different series at 12 to 15 books each in one book and actually pull it off.
Cool.
He's a talented writer, and I think he definitely deserves my endorsement on that.
Yeah, the official Two Fat Guys Talk endorsement. Put that on your book. Put a fucking label. Put a seal. If we had a seal, that would help us a lot, actually. It's your turn for a category.
TV show.
Yes, I have this category. Go on.
And again, you're going to hate me by brokering the Netflix and not.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I actually have something for both, though, on this one.
Oh my god. Fine.
For me, for TV show, I broke this into Mythbusters.
As the show of last decade?
As the show of last decade.
Did it start the last decade? Or did it start before?
It still went on.
Oh, again, you're an adult. You pick whatever. You justify it however you want. I'm just saying.
It ended, 2 years ago, and it was like a 14-year series.
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Fair enough. I think Mythbusters was probably my favorite TV show, as well as one of the more influential, in a positive way, shows on. Honorable mention goes to The Last Airbender / Korra.
I definitely think that Mythbusters is a very... They made educational programming just a lot of fun and extremely watchable.
Yes.
Due to good personalities and fun experiments that didn't go over the top with the marketing.
Yeah.
They kept John T. marketing away from it, and the marketing was very smart about that show too. Yeah, those are very good. Now, do your entirely unnecessary Netflix version.
I chose Voltron. As much as I may not have liked how it ended, Voltron was, for the most part, a very well put together show that just couldn't land the finale.
Voltron Legendary Defender has a lot of good and a lot of bad, for sure. So I only had one TV category because, of course, I would.
Mm-hmm.
My honorable mentions are She-Ra and the Princess of Power, which I probably would have made my TV show of last decade if it all ended last decade. I decided not to since it's still ongoing. The Expanse, which started last decade, it's also still ongoing. Just a fantastic live action. It's an adaptation of a book series I haven't read. Just future sci-fi that's grounded in reality. They kept things really grounded in how humans might, in how the future might look like technology-wise, but also mixed it with a little touch of alien technology as well, right?
Okay.
Super good show, great characters, great characterization, just a blast to watch. My last honorable mention before I get to my TV show of last decade was Kill la Kill, because I love Kill la Kill. Like, definitely my favorite anime of last decade, just over-the-top fun, incredible animation, strong themes, strong characters, good everything.
So I'm guessing by that you don't have an actual anime category here.
I do. When it comes up, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
But animes are still TV shows, so I included it.
Fair enough.
And my TV show of last decade is, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, Steven Universe.
Okay.
Steven Universe just showed us, it lifted the bar in terms of representation and diversity, in terms of showing us a character in a world where not every problem needs to be fought out, where you can sometimes you level up Paragon and you solve everything with Paragon, and that's Steven Universe.
It really is.
Just an incredible series that in many ways opened up the gates to stuff like She-Ra being more doable. Yeah, that's my TV show of last decade. My turn for a category. I'll go there. The video game of last decade.
Okay. Now you already know that I broke this up by system, rather publisher.
Sure.
Than I did by just video game.
I actually do have. Do I have categories? I do have a few categories later down the line, but maybe they'll come up later.
Okay.
So my honorable mentions for game of last decade: The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. A very iterative game that took a lot of ideas from the West and Japan, mixed them all together, made an open world fun for me. I normally don't like a lot of open world games because I'd rather be on rails if your open world's going to be empty and boring. And in Breath of the Wild, it is anything but. Every corner of that world hides something. Mega Man 11 for bringing back Mega Man in spectacular fashion, being a well-made Mega Man game to boot. Not doing it in the old 8-bit retro style, which I didn't hate, but I was kind of done with after 9 and 10. And Sonic Mania for reminding us why people liked Sonic games in the first place, because they used to be good, and they used to be made like this. Sonic Mania is probably the best Sonic game. And now, my game of last decade. This is a game that I felt was just an absolute great value all around. It is a game that just encapsulates value and heroism. It has fantastic gameplay, amazing level design. It was a bargain before its price raise, still a bargain after, never charged for any of its updates. It is Shovel Knight, the game of last decade. It also has incredible music. Did I mention it has incredible music? Easily last decade's greatest game, and still continues to get updates. Just so good. Yacht Club Games. You know what? Come out here, guys. Come take the award. Whatever all your names are. I don't know, Dave. We have a trophy for them, right? We have a trophy for the Yacht Club guys. I invited them over. I've got music and everything. No trophy.
No trophy.
No trophy. Fucking go home. Get the fuck out. All right, they're gone. I should probably lower the volume on this. Just gonna cold turkey it. All right. That's my game of last decade.
Okay.
Did you prepare a sound file for yours?
No, I did not.
All right.
So, I did this a little bit differently than you did.
Yeah.
I broke it into Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and PC.
Sure.
with mobile. Now, I actually do have a game of the decade that I feel sums up everything.
Yeah. But by all means, do that. And then we'll jump to your categories.
For me, I feel that my game of the decade was Nier Automata.
I didn't guess it right. I thought for sure you were going to say The Witcher 3.
No. I'll get there.
Sure.
But for me, what Nier pulled off, both in its presentation, its amazing music, its amazing set pieces, and just emotional storylines you go through it, sums up just how good a game can be in the last decade. If anybody has not played this game, now, don't get me wrong, I can understand if you haven't played it, because it's not just one game type.
There are lots of different things in here.
Everything from bullet hell to...
It's character action, it's a shmup, it's an RPG, it's a hacking simulator.
It's just, it has so many awesome things to it to make a whole. So many games try and pull that off, and they always fail at something. For Nier to have done as well as it did and nail everything, it just makes it my game of the year. Now,
you know what? I'll add that as one of my honorable mentions because I actually forgot about its existence when I was making this list.
However, the most influential
I have one for this too.
Game of the last decade would have to be the Dark Souls games. Not any one of them. Just the idea behind Dark Souls, the lose your progress, go back to the main save point, go back, try and get back your experience and continue on. This has become such a staple of so many games now. And maybe you're one of those people who doesn't like the Dark Souls games. I get that. I really do. But you've got Dark Souls light games where it's not quite so brutal, gives you some challenge with a lot of fairness, and then you just have the pure Dark Souls games where buckle up and prepare to get anally fucked by the game.
It's a lot like a 3D version of what old Nintendo games were like,
yes,
right?
Very
it's
much
kind of
so.
like what, kind of an evolution of the Castlevania formula. Limited movement, and you have to make that work.
So I do believe that Dark Souls is probably the most influential title of the decade.
I would, you know what? That's good entry. I do have some influential games, actually. I did have this categoried out. My influential game of last decade was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, for reasons already mentioned. And to tie it into yours, there's a little tiny bit of Dark Souls in it, especially when you play in Master Mode. My honorable mentions are both from Niantic, and they're Ingress and Pokemon Go. And the reason that is because they kind of cemented this whole infrastructure with Ingress and then built upon it with Pokemon Go of using the real world as the level. Certainly there are imperfections in both titles and a lot of microtransaction problems in both titles as well. But I definitely think they're very influential and in a lot of ways showed us that mobile games don't all have to be gacha crap. Like, I think they're very influential games.
Really, Pokemon Go does... It's actually on my list here for mobile video games as being probably the best and most influential mobile game because it shows what we can pull off with altered reality.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is Google Glass. If Google Glass had managed to put that game on Google Glass, we'd all probably have a pair.
Would there be so many car accidents?
However, I'm kind of glad that didn't go that way because they were already talking about putting ads everywhere as you walk around.
So many car accidents.
Well, you just have it that when the car's in motion, you'd have that turned off automatically.
I thought of a new category, highest kill count of a video game on people, and that's Pokemon Go.
Fair enough.
So why don't you mention your system ones? Because I do have a couple of genre categories, and literally like 3.
Okay.
So why don't you do yours, and then I'll do those of mine, and we'll wrap up video games then.
Well, we both agree about the Nintendo game that has had the most influence of the decade, and that is Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, Breath of the Wild reintroduced the Zelda game to the populace and nailed it.
Yeah, here's the world. Figure it out.
Exactly. It wasn't the on-rails kind of open world as the previous games had been.
Which I also don't think is bad.
Which I don't think is bad, but they were starting to lose some of their structure, and therefore they weren't as good of games. Breath of the Wild was just like, okay, here's your setting, here's your ideas, there's the castle, have fun. If you wanted to go and try and take out the castle right at the beginning, you could. And you could actually pull it off if you were good enough. I think that's great. And you're right. I mean, so many twists and turns, different places where you're like, oh, well, this looks like nothing. You go down into the hollow of a mountain, and all of a sudden, you know, one of those giant rock golems comes out and you're fighting it. Or, you know, there's just a rock there sitting there that seems weird. You pick it up and there's one of those Deku nuts. It's just amazing relaunch of a game.
It's fantastic. Agreed 100%.
And the first game that's getting a direct sequel. Yes, I know Zelda 1, Zelda 2 are technically direct sequels.
It is not the first Zelda game getting a direct sequel.
Actually it isn't, is it? Because
not only Zelda 1,
Link to the Past.
Link to the Past and Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
And the Oracle of Ages and Seasons, which is also that same Link. There's A Link Between Worlds, which is 100 years after that, but in the same world.
Okay, so I can get away with saying it's the only Zelda, then, that takes place almost directly after the previous one.
Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass. Same Link.
We do not talk about the Phantom Hourglass.
I know it sucks, but it's still the same Link.
I guess.
And then right after that, you have Spirit Tracks, which is, again, later in that same world. A Link to the Past, not A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, same young Link.
We do not speak of Majora's Mask.
You need to shut your mouth about Majora's Mask. It's not my favorite one, but it's still good. Yeah, there are so many direct sequels in Zelda. So it's not the first time. This is definitely the one where... This is definitely one of the bigger direct sequels in Zelda, and the one that people are really clamoring for to see what's next, especially with Ganondorf potentially being under the castle.
Yeah. For Sony, I put God of War.
The new one?
The new one.
God of War 4 or whatever?
God of War 4 reinvented the God of War franchise, and much like Breath of the Wild, they just nailed it out of the park.
Also influenced heavily by Dark Souls.
Yes. And The Last of Us.
Yeah, The Last of Us...
The Last of Us only had one game, with the second one coming up here soon. It took 7 years to get here. But The Last of Us really set the bar on the kind of adventure, stealth style game.
That's the cool thing about it. I know you have your not overpaid, but your kind of silly reviewers talking about how, The Last of Us is good because it's not fun and it's cathartic. No, shut up. It is fun. Its gameplay hook is resource management in a world of very limited resources. And it frames that in a very heart-wrenching story.
Yep.
And that game mixes mechanics and story really well. It's not just an adventure game with some shoot-bangy elements. It's really good. Really good.
So that was Sony for me.
And then did you have a Microsoft one?
Oh, yes. Now, Microsoft was really, really hard because I focused on Microsoft being the Xbox games versus PC. Because I have a PC category.
Yeah.
Which means that a lot of games that also had PC versions, I still kind of kept on the Xbox side to give them an actual chance here. While going through the games of the last decade for Microsoft, they really have just stuck to making sequels. All of their original new IP games that I thought I was really going to enjoy, they end up canceling. So Microsoft was really hard to try and find a game and an honorable mention here that isn't Gears of War.
Yeah, I really wanted Scalebound to come out too. That's what I see.
So I went with Microsoft being creative or bringing creative people with their games on their system. I chose Ori and the Blind Forest.
Sure.
because the developer managed to put the storyline and the artwork so beautifully together, managed to had me tear up at different points with what was going on, and has a sequel on the way. So one of my favorite games on a Microsoft system of all time, followed up by Cuphead.
Cuphead's good. Oh, why didn't I put that in my influential games?
Because Cuphead reintroduced the world to that style of animation.
Yeah.
Now, yes, animation's been done before in old-timey animation and everything else, but this is the first time in decades that we've seen this style of animation used in a mass market way. And Cuphead, it was the Dark Souls of platformers, definitely.
Oh my god, don't do that. It was not. It's a Contra boss rush. That's not Dark Souls. It's its own thing.
Actually, you're right. Okay, I'll change that.
It's a run and gun boss rush game with the occasional level, and it plays spectacularly well. And I can't believe that I didn't include it as one of my games this last decade. I'm going to retroactively add it to my honorable mentions.
I thought you would, because Cuphead...
Yeah, why the fuck did I forget Cuphead?
Cuphead was amazing single player, and I think it was even better multiplayer.
Yeah?
Because the extra hit points the boss got, the less damage you did, and just the tag teaming you had to do. I mean, we let's played that game, and it was amazing.
Yeah, one day I'll actually put the rest of that let's play up,
God.
Were those all your video game categories, or do you want to...
I've still got one. PC.
Yeah.
Now, game of the decade for PC has got to go to The Witcher 3. It's also the most influential game. Period.
He's in Soul Calibur 6.
Cool. Soul Calibur is just a weird game to me. But The Witcher 3 showed that you can make your massive quests epic, but you can also make your go and kill 5 rat quests epic as well. There is not a single quest in The Witcher 3 that does the old style of, I need you to go and kill person X, without some sort of twist coming along the way. Oh, I want you to kill the werewolf that's been killing people in my forest. Actually not a werewolf, it's a person who needs your help, and the actual town are the bad guys. Stuff like that. I mean, The Witcher 3's world is so rich in atmosphere. The enemies feel like a part of the actual world rather than just something downloaded into it. The fight seems more real than it ever has been before. And it showed just how piss poor Bethesda's systems of quest making are. How even some of our favorite RPGs need to up their fucking game. And if you can't do as good as The Witcher 3, don't bother anymore. This game set the standard. As honorable mentions on that one, because these games have had their own massive influences in our games, is Minecraft and Fortnite.
Fortnite has that influence.
I may not like Fortnite, but Fortnite really did make the Battle Royale games just blossom. I mean, yes, you had that one before it.
PUBG.
PUBG.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
But Fortnite took that mechanic and just blew it out of the park.
Yeah, definitely
Minecraft
the most popular one.
Showed how a 3D Lego can work without being limited by Lego's stupidities.
I think 3D Lego has always been 3D. You're going to be real technical about it, but point taken.
A 3D game.
Yeah, a video Lego.
Yeah. Because whenever you actually get a Lego-style game like Lego World or Lego MMO, they always have limitations on what you can build or what pieces or how many pieces you can use. Minecraft, especially creative, you just go in and do whatever the hell you want. So it's allowed kids to be creative and even being used as an educational tool. So you can't deny that Minecraft has had a massive influence on how things have gone.
Cannot deny it.
That's it for games for me.
All right. I'll go through my game-related best of the decades. Best new level for an old game of the decade goes to John Romero's Sigil for Ultimate Doom. It reminds me that Doom wasn't just all run and gun, it was also very atmospheric. And John Romero is the master of making a very atmospheric level in this old style, but also still intense and infinitely playable, even with the limited monsters of Doom 1. Super good, and if you happen to have Doom on, say, the Switch, you can go play that for free right now.
Yeah.
Super good. Best fan game goes to Mega Man Unlimited. You and I played a bunch of that, and it's only gotten even more updates since then. Now, I've played some Mega Man fan games, and I've liked none of them until Mega Man Unlimited. Even the much-vaunted Rockman 4 Minus Infinity, I have a world of problems with that I'm not going to get into right now. Mega Man Unlimited feels like it could have come from Capcom. And for that, Mega Phil X should be applauded. He's also making a very interesting-looking Mega Man X fan game called Mega Man X Corrupted that I have my eye on. Best Battle Royale of the decade goes to Tetris 99 because it's the only Battle Royale game I've actually liked and actually play. Super good. It works. Tetris works in the Battle Royale space. It just does. You can attack other players. You have to be strategic about it, and the games are over relatively quickly. They don't draw out. So really good game there. My best puzzle game of last decade, I'm also going to give to Tetris 99, but I'm going to give the honorable mention to Puyo Puyo Tetris for just being this novel combination of them. I'll give another honorable mention to Puyo Puyo Championship, aka Puyo Puyo Esports, because Puyo is just really well done. It's been so refined over the years as a versus puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's it in terms of games. Yeah, those are all my game-related best of the decades. So I technically started the game talk, which means you're up to mention a category.
Well, before I do a category, I have one more thing within the game system.
Sure.
And it's honorable mention, but it's also a comparison of what to do versus what not to do.
Okay.
This is The Outer Worlds versus Fallout 76.
Okay.
Now, anybody who has followed Fallout 76 knows that of the dumpster fire that this game is.
It's a big burning fire.
Of the giant example of what not to do in game development, in how to treat your customers and everything else, whereas we now have the example of what to do with your customers of The Outer Worlds. Not a AAA game by any means of the imagination. Its budget was probably AA at best. But
still looks AAA.
But it looks way better than Fallout 76, and it really has shown that Bethesda really doesn't know even how to do their own games anymore.
They really don't. We could have a whole discussion about Blizzard on that, but I think that's going to wait for another day.
That probably should. That's a big one. Also on there would be Star Wars Fallen Jedi versus Star Wars
Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes.
Yeah.
Versus Star Wars Battlefield 2. And just showing that...
Battlefront 2? It's Battlefront.
Wow, you're just totally...
I am on point!
No,
it's not annoying at all to be corrected by your fat friend Carlos.
It just shows that single-player games haven't died. I mean, us as the game players have known this forever. EA is now relearning this thing. And the fact that microtransactions weren't there was a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I had to throw this in, but the worst thing to pop up.
No, we're not doing any negativity. Not doing any negativity. No negativity.
I didn't agree to this.
Yes, you did, actually.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Let me go find the messages where you actually said that. I sent you a bunch of messages about the next podcast, Best of Last Decades. We bring whatever categories we want. And one of the things I mentioned said is, I don't think we should do worst ofs the decade, though. And you said, and I quote, I agree with everything. I quote, I'm showing it to you. So yes, you did agree.
Well,
but you know what?
Now I disagree.
You know what I'll give you? You say it, but we're not going to really talk about it.
Sure.
Okay.
Worst thing to come out of this decade was microtransactions.
Agreed. Done. You're right. Terrible. Are you out of categories?
No, I've got one more. Anime.
Oh, yeah, I have that one too. Go on.
For anime, my anime of the decade would be Kino's Journey: The Beautiful World.
It's a good one. It's a good choice.
With honorable mention, Kill la Kill.
Yeah. Kino's Journey is a fun one because it really showed... they were like, here's a true neutral character. And they made it work in what I thought was a better way than the old Kino's Journey show did.
Yeah.
I was so in love with Kino by the time that show was over. Like, I was so rooting for her true neutral, chaotic neutral lifestyle. So good. So good. Your honorable mention is my anime of last decade, Kill la Kill. For reasons I have mentioned before. My honorable mention for anime is Senki Zesho Symphogear. I can't think of too many other animes other than Kill la Kill where I was just on the edge of my seat waiting to see how absurd this super fan servicey, super impeccably animated, insane production value anime was going to do next. I remember at the beginning of season 4 when they were fighting a monster that could literally pluck a healthy version of itself out of another timeline to heal itself. So Hibiki beat it by punching it so hard, it died in every timeline. And that's not even the most crazy thing to happen in that show.
I remember just how trembling you were at the end of season 1 when you thought that they may have actually killed her off.
And they didn't. Oh, I bet.
You were just like, no, they did not do this to me. You know, I'm surprised I didn't think of Symphogear for that one, because that was a stellar series, and the payoff was way better than we got from another one of our
Yuki Yuna.
Yeah.
I think Symphogear, when I started to think about it, I'm like, Symphogear has dominated my thoughts for a long time now, and I can't put it above Kill la Kill, but I can put it right there.
Yeah.
It's really too bad it didn't get any kind of official English release, but the logistics of that
would be
insane.
A nightmare.
Is it my turn to do a category?
Fire away.
All right. I'm going to do the best hot sauce, the hot sauce of last decade.
God.
Hui Fong Sriracha Hot Chili Sauce. It is a relatively mild sauce, but it is impossibly delicious, and I've been putting that shit in everything. You know how those Frank's Red Hot commercials are like, I put that shit in everything? Frank's Red Hot is garbage. This you can put on everything. Do you have a hot sauce of last decade?
Mustard.
There is a little bit of spice in mustard, especially if we're talking English mustard.
I don't do hot sauces or sauces at all. So
Yeah, I know.
It's not a good category for me.
Category, back to you.
I'm out.
Okay, let me go through the rest of mine in order then. Okay, we did game, we did film, we did book, we did TV show, we did anime. Live action television show of the last decade. I put the...
Compared to just TV shows.
Yeah, this was...
You berated me for having Netflix and traditional, but you're going to do TV show and then live action TV show?
Well, I had a TV show category. This is now a subcategory after the overall one. Kind of like how you had a game, and then you had ones for each system.
I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, it's no different. Like, my honorable mention was my winner of this category, which was The Expanse. With my honorable mention being Better Call Saul, which has just been a fantastic continuation of the mythos of the Breaking Bad universe.
Okay.
Really well done. Those are my game ones. Best pasta shape of the last decade, rotini. But my honorable mention is basically everything else because pasta is fucking delicious. I will not die on a hill defending rotini over any other shape because I'll still eat it.
As we were discussing coming back from Rise of the Skywalker, or going to Rise of the Skywalker, I think.
It's the Rise of Skywalker. I know the confusion because I also used to think it was Rise of the Skywalker. But yeah, you like tortellini.
I argue that tortellini is actually the superior pasta, both for the contents of the tortellini, as well as its ability to hold sauce.
Sure. I'm not going to argue that because I'll eat the shit out of tortellini. My best beverage of last decade, Tropicana Tropics Orange Strawberry Banana Juice Blend. An impossibly delicious blend of orange, strawberry, pineapple and apple and or pear juice with banana puree. It is crack juice, is what we call it at my household. With an honorable mention, and you like this one, of Sumol Laranja, aka Orange Sumol.
Okay. Yeah, small is good. I actually prefer a homemade one.
Which is?
It's a fruit.
Oh, is it a brand one or?
No, actually,
No.
It's a mix.
Okay.
It is from concentrate, frozen orange juice.
Okay.
From concentrate, fruit punch mix.
Okay.
Both cans into the same container.
Uh-huh.
And then you fill up 2/3 of that with either 7-Up,
Uh-huh.
or if you want something a little bit less sweet, just regular ginger ale.
Do you fucking have this? Because it sounds awesome.
I don't
Why
have
haven't you given it to me?
I don't have it right now, but it is a amazing taste sensation.
Fuck yeah! Next time you make it, please. Like, that sounds good.
It is really good, and whenever my mom has made it for parties or for anything else, for my sister's wedding, we had, alcohol, we had pops, we had juices. I had to make additional trips to the store for more individual concentrates and pops because we couldn't keep the bowl full.
What do you call this concoction?
I just call it my mom's special fruit punch.
Can I give you a name? Dave Juice.
No, I'm not going to give you a Dave Juice.
Okay. Best trend of last decade, the general awareness of class and capitalism. We're finally waking up to this as a people, and I hope this means better things for us in the future. Best graphic novel of last decade, Nimona by Noel Stevenson, which you have read part of and should finish reading because, come on, Dave. Best Western animation of last decade, Steven Universe for reasons already mentioned. My honorable mentions are Sheeran the Princesses of Power for reasons already mentioned. And my second honorable mention is a favorite of yours and mine, the very venerated and excellent Gravity Falls. I have a third honorable mention here, the If It Had Been Earlier honorable mention, which is Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast, because I've been watching it recently with Keeks. It is so fucking good, and everyone should be watching Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast. Fucking amazing, amazing animation. And shit, that's it. That's the end of my list. We did it. We hammered it out of the park. Dave, what do you think? What do you think of our best of last decade listings?
Some things are very similar, but I don't think we disagree with either of our options on this. There's no...
No, there was nothing you said that made me go, come on. That made you go, fuck off. Wrong choice.
You brought up a couple ones that I was surprised I didn't have on my list as honorable mentions. Big Gravity Falls, come on. Symphogear, definitely.
I mean, we're not talking about a whole decade.
Yeah, and that's the problem is...
I looked up some of these being like, did this come out last decade?
Mm-hmm. Well, even for my little microtransaction thing, I had to actually look at when microtransactions started.
Yeah.
And do I think it's gotten worse this decade? Absolutely. But some of these shows, it's hard to get past sometimes the fact that you like a show way more now because you've recently seen it and enjoyed it, to remember just how much you enjoyed the previous one.
Sure. Funny enough, I was going to put Children of Men as one of my films of last decade. And then I looked up the year, and it was not last decade.
No,
this was 2 decades ago already. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm old.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, my friend.
Yeah. So I was like, fuck, when did this come out? 2000 something. And I think District 9 was also that.
Yes, it was.
Otherwise, because I actually forgot about that until right now.
No, I thought about District 9. I'm like, nope, that's last decade.
The decade prior. Yeah.
Gotta say, though, I think I can honestly say that there's less movies coming out now that are must-see in the theater than there was last decade. There just has not... Part of it is growing older, granted. Like, I had to see Star Wars in the theater. That would have been the first Star Wars I hadn't seen in theaters.
Yeah, I've seen all of them in a movie theater as well.
So any Star Trek movie that comes out, I will see in theaters unless it's really bad, I guess. But I'm finding less and less year after year, there's those must-see in theaters. Because, like, I can wait for it to come out for rent.
Even Avengers Endgame, I waited. In fact, I still haven't seen it. I suspect when I do, I will think it is fine. I don't... Like, Avengers Infinity War, I couldn't wait to watch. Avengers Endgame, I just kind of was like, man, maybe it's because I didn't want that era to come to an end. Maybe it's because I heard of some of the negativity regarding Fat Thor, and I was like, I'll wait then. And the only reason I haven't seen Spider-Man Far From Home is because I want to wait.
You need to see Endgame first.
I have no excuse for not having seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, though, and I'm surprised you didn't mention that since you've already seen it and everyone and their mother seems to love it.
Oh, that really should be in there as far as movies, definitely, now that you mention it, because Into the Spider-Verse was just amazingly done, and I kind of wish that's where the movies were going.
I'm actually going to add one that I forgot to talk about, and it calls back to our very first episode of Two Fat Guys Talk, back when it was called Two Fat Guys Talk Games, and its best game controller of last decade. And it is the Xbox Elite Gamepad Series 2, which Keeks recently got as a gift. Super good gamepad, interchangeable components, paddles on the back, which I think every gamepad needs to have standard these days. Just a fantastic controller all around.
And yet...
Feels good on the hands.
I think overall the best controller is the Xbox One controller.
Just the base controller?
Just the base controller. And the reason I say that is, look, yes, the Elite is an amazing controller, but that is out of reach of most people to just drop money on.
Yes, if the Xbox One base pad had a better D-pad and back paddles, I would totally agree with you.
And even if it doesn't have the back paddles, I think the Xbox One controller is, well, it's the controller that everybody uses as the standard.
It's really good. I wish it had a better D-pad. I really do, because that D-pad, it looks like it's fine, but it's not. And the one on the Series 2 Pro controller is a lot better. And it has two options for it, including that disc, which is actually fairly good, even as like a fighting game thing. If the D-pad was better and it had either back paddles or its triggers weren't analog, it would be my favorite controller of all time.
See, the trigger thing is very much a you thing.
It's a me thing. I hate it. Even the Elite has the ability to shorten the trigger stops, which I think should be standard because goddamn, I hate analog triggers so much. Hate analog triggers. I would rather have floor pedals for the racing game that need that fine analog acceleration. And of all the racing game I've played that have that, I have never used it. I just accelerate all the way and let go of the button when I want to decelerate.
Yeah.
Or I've used the right stick even. Up to accelerate, down to brake, and have the different levels there. I cannot stand analog triggers. Hate. But if a controller has analog triggers but also back paddles, I don't really have a complaint because I have the digital option right there.
And a lot of those games now have that no matter what you, how much you press it just activates.
Yeah, which is even worse. So now not only is it a shitty analog trigger, but there isn't even different levels of sensitivity. So you can't use it for analog, and it's an even worse digital button now. Oh, great. Good for you. Good for you! Wait, wasn't I the one who said this shouldn't be negative? Fuck it. Fuck microtransactions. Capitalism is the fucking worst.
You can, as long as it's put in with the positives, I don't mind.
Sure. Devaniel, how long have we been recording for?
Hour 25.
That's less than I thought. I thought we were at the 2-hour mark at least.
No.
By the time I shorten this, it will probably be an hour 24. So, do we have anything to end off on or to plug or whatnot?
Not really. We're now in the year where we're going to have a new Microsoft and a new Sony system in the same year.
Nintendo apparently has said there's no new Switch being developed, so...
Good.
Which is fine by me. I'm having a lot of fun with my Switch.
My biggest fear from last year was that with the release of the portable-only Switch, was that we were going to see companies starting to split the install base by going only portable versions of the games that don't actually go onto the TV.
Yeah.
That was my biggest worry.
It hasn't happened. I think there's one game that can only be done in handheld mode, and I think there's a reason for it, and it's not even a first-party Nintendo thing. I don't even remember which game it is. Have you heard much of Temtem on Steam? That Pokemon clone being made by Humble?
I've heard of it.
A friend of the show who's been on the show before, Richard, has been singing the praises, and I've seen him play a bit of it. And it does two things that I wish Pokemon did that already make me kind of want to try it, even though it's in early access. The first is that you can easily just switch your moves in and out the way I always said Pokemon should do it. You don't have to go to a move remember, just when you're out of battle, you can swap your 4 moves with whatever the pool of moves is.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, since it's technically an MMO, it's all saved on the server. So you don't have to worry about your save file being on your Switch, and since it's incompatible with the cloud backup, losing all your progress. And the Temtem designs seem okay. I really want to try the game, actually.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's that one, and there's that Zelda-esque game by that Chinese company.
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast, the one that people are saying is a ripoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to try that game too, actually.
Yeah. No, and one of the big reasons why I put Breath of the Wild as my most influential game from Nintendo is because, I mean, even Assassin's Creed, they're doing a new IP around being a Greek soldier hunting the monsters of the Greek and Norse gods. And it looks like you're playing Breath of the Wild. They went to the kind of cel-shaded style, more cartoony of Breath of the Wild, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, just because it looks like Breath of the Wild, but you're doing your own thing with it, doesn't mean you're copying.
Do you think we're going to see the Breath of the Wild sequel this year?
No.
Do you think we're at least going to get news?
Yes.
Hey, how weird was it that they had an Assassin's Creed costume in Smash Brothers? That was more surprising to me than Cuphead, which I thought was going to happen eventually. And it did. But just having an Altair costume is so weird. Although, funny enough, when they showed it in that last Direct, they said Smash Brothers cross Altair and not cross Assassin's Creed. Probably because they didn't want to put the name Assassin right on beside Smash Brothers. But still, how weird is that, man?
Well, I mean, it's costume for your me.
And I guess it's Ubisoft, and they have a working relationship with Nintendo, and they have Rabbids costumes too. So
yeah,
this is why I don't think we'll see the Doom Slayer as a character, but we might well see a Mii Gunner Doom Slayer outfit.
Maybe.
If Doom gets represented, that will be how it is. And possibly a music track, maybe. By the way, that Cuphead costume and track was less than $1, and same with the Sans one from Undertale. Those are the only costumes I've bought for Smash other than the Fighter's Pass stuff.
Yep.
And I don't regret them, because those are good tunes. I tried Byleth. She feels way more like Ike than Marth, but she kind of feels like Ike with range.
Okay.
So, like, for example, her default B, it's a bow, but it's not at all like Link's. There are 2 charge levels, and if you charge more than the first one, you hard commit to doing the fully charged one. So, and all of her moves are like that. I say her because I prefer the female Byleth to male. But she's definitely a heavy character. She runs slow, she's kind of heavy. Her moves, even though they're very ranged, they're still slow. She basically plays like ranged Ike. The only Fire Emblem character in that game of 8 Fire Emblem characters whose down B is not a counter. It's actually just a straight up other move. Which in and of itself is pretty amazing. She's a lot of fun. Dante should have been there, but maybe next season. Next time we play Smash, I will probably use her a bunch. Though I don't know if I like her or Terry more. Terry plays really well.
Yeah, I'm so far behind on Smash. It's actually one of the first Smash games that I actually have the system that I haven't bought the game for.
Yeah, it's okay. It's best played with friends for funsies anyway.
That's just it.
Yeah. So, Dave, 2020 is coming, and we will tackle it head on together, except when we're not together and we're doing our own thing. Folks, what did you think of our best of last decade? I did put out a call for voicemails, but I clearly didn't give enough time. I know, Dave, you wanted me to put a video calling it out, but I just didn't have time to do that. Videos, even small ones, take time to do. But if we do get sufficient feedback on this, we can do a follow-up maybe if people have other things they want to say about it.
Just send us a voicemail. It will get answered on the podcast.
Yeah, just go to twofatguystalk.com, click on the voicemail link on the right, and send us a voicemail. twofatguystalk.com, which you can also access at animerave.xyz, is the home of Two Fat Guys Talk, this podcast, and of Carlos Dave Anime Rave, the best anime review show on the internet. And...
Weird pause.
Yeah, I've always been doing that weird pause lately. Go there, send us feedback, let us know what you thought of this episode. If you have the money, support us on our Patreon there. If not, let just spread the word. I'm looking and I'm considering heavily on moving our podcast to Spotify, because Spotify has just been a great up-and-comer podcast platform that has apparently made it easy to migrate over to it, and I've been looking for an excuse to get off the sinking ship that is Feedburner for some time. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Let us know. Yeah.
Tune in next time.
Bye!